All right, guys, so welcome to this video. In this video, we're going to ask Zach, my good friend here, as you can see, Zach Mir, who, by the way, is on the Twitter handle @Zach's Traders Cafe. So do check out Zach's Twitter feed @Zach's Traders Cafe. I'm going to ask Zach an important question here, because here in the UK, there's been a whole bunch of stuff happening with another election, a snap election coming now in December 12th, with the with an election, and of course. It's a big gamble, I think, that Boris Johnson is taking. Now, some of you may think no, it's not a gamble, because otherwise, why would he call an election? But as we've seen before, many surprises have been happening before in the past. Many surprises have happened with elections. Good example is what happened in 2016 with President Trump. You guys remember that the presidential election in 2016, big major surprise no one expected, as well as the Brexit vote. The Brexit vote itself was a major surprise. So, Zach, first in question I want to ask you is, do you think Boris Johnson is taking quite a big risk here, a big gamble on this election? The second thing is, what could be the result there, do you think, and what could happen in the markets? Before we start, by the way, guys, before we continue, let me first of all say that neither myself or Zach are political. I'm not political here, so neither one of us, and certainly not myself, I don't support any political party. I don't support any party, whether it's conservative, liberal, labor, whatever, Democrat. I don't care about any of these political stuff. We just want to speculate as to what potentially could happen in the election in December. Zach, what do you think about all this? So what do you think about Boris Johnson's decision there?
Well, I don't think it was actually his decision. It didn't really have much of a choice. He wasn't able to get anything through Parliament or anything else. He's a minority government, and he had no mandate. He just took over from the previous incumbent, so that was pretty straightforward. The situation now, I suppose, he's calling the Labour Party, well, the opposition's bluff. The opposition didn't didn't want an election for various reasons. He's counting on the Labour Party in the UK being unelectable. That's what he's counting on.
That's what he's gambling on, is he? You think that's his gamble?
He's gambling on that. The Labour Party is a very ultra high tax, anti sort of elitist type of sour grapes type of approach to. So it's a bit like, I suppose it's a bit like Bernie Sanders. I'm not quite sure whether he's quite the same. I don't think anybody could be.
Sorry, Zach. Just for our American viewers, if you're not familiar with Jeremy Corbyn. Jeremy Corbyn is seen as on the left in the politics here in the UK, and as Zach was saying here, some people or most people in the UK consider him to be a sort of more of a left-wing or left-leaning politician that could potentially increase taxes, and maybe and again, these are rumors. I've heard this actually from people in the City of London, in the financial center. That I've heard rumors, by the way, Zach. And again, guys, as I mentioned before, we're not against Corbyn. We're not against or for him. Same goes with Boris Johnson. We're not for or against whatever party. We're not political here. But I've heard personally, Zach, from people in the City of London financial center. I've heard rumors that the City of London, the financial centers, are deeply afraid of Jeremy Corbyn winning the election, purely because of what you just said, because of the potential tax rises, and maybe some of his policies might be against business. But what I'm saying here is the financial centers, the traders in the city, consider Jeremy Corbyn to be potentially a threat to themselves. Obviously, the traders don't want something to be a threat to them for obvious reasons. So, Zach, what do you think about that? Do you think that could be some uncertainty or shaky for the stock markets or for the major markets potentially?
No, it would be on the day it would be calamitous. You'd have the pound put down by 5 cents, maybe 10 cents, something horrific, and the FTSE down by 400 or 500 points. I mean, it would be an absolute it would be a complete. I mean, whether it was correct to do so is another matter, but the reaction would certainly be a massive fall in the FTSE 100 and a massive fall in the pound.
Really?
Yeah. So there's no. I mean, it would be literally be an absolutely people would just be getting the money out of the country. It's like last one to turn the lights on.
Zach, they said the same thing about Trump, President Trump. Do you remember back before President Trump won the election, they were saying the exact same thing about President Trump, that it's going to crash. Actually, it did overnight crash. As you know, the S&P dropped several hundred points, but it then recovered. But I guess with President Trump, it was different because Donald Trump, he actually lowered taxes on the corporations. He had a tax cut, which was pro-business, whereas you're saying that if Corbyn wins, potentially that might be a negative because, well, Corbyn might raise taxes for corporations and may, again, that might be a different situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's the left wing is anti-business, the right wing is allegedly pro-business. They're both allegedly what they are.
Right.
So you'd have that fact, you'd have that thing. The pound, the recent, the sort of 3-year support for the pound is $1.20. If Corbyn came in, I would be pretty sure that it would break 120 from wherever it is. Whether it's at 140, it would break 120. Whether it's 130, it would break 120. It would go below 7,000 on the FTSE. I'm almost certain that that would happen as well. It may not stay down, and there may be.
Sorry, continue.
But the trading opportunities there, and the more, let's say, it's a bit like the Brexit vote run-up that the pound was rallying ahead of the Brexit announcement, and then to 150, and then it came back to, I don't know, 125 in a few days. I mean, it was like a complete collapse. I think that if there is a Labour minority government, which is what I'm thinking that there will be, it won't be a majority to Corbyn, but a Labour minority government, so Labour, Lib Dem, Scottish Nationalists, and whoever else wants to get on the party, that's what would happen. That would be a real shock to the system here, and but I think that we're actually now in a situation that it's something that could happen. The test for that, yeah. So that's something that happened. I don't think that the market has factored that in at all, and we would refuse to believe that in the same way that we would refuse to believe that Trump was going to win, and it was refused to believe that the Brexit vote would happen. I think we're in that situation, but I think the mood of the people is very much on. I don't care about the money. I care about the principle, and we've been let down, and I'm gonna as a protest vote, I'll vote for Corbyn. I don't care. So that's the sort of thing. The other thing is that this tonight was supposed to be Brexit night. Obviously, it isn't.
True. Yeah, so today was supposed to be Brexit, and didn't happen. It's been postponed to 30 days.
Yes. Yeah, I knew it wouldn't be, and I had a bet with the fund manager that it wouldn't be, and my 50 quid is safe.
Sorry to interrupt you, but Zach's been correct on this point, because he said in the previous webinar that it's just going to get postponed and postponed. Do you still think, Zach, sorry, I'll let you finish your thought, but I also want to ask you, do you still think that Brexit's going to happen or not? January 31st, we're going to have Brexit. So I want to come back to that point, but finish what you're saying.
It's never going to happen. If it does happen, it will be just a Brexit in name only, as that withdrawal agreement was that Boris Johnson was trying to get through Parliament. That was not a Brexit. That was a permission to stay on a bit longer agreement. It was not. It was nothing.
Explain your point. What do you mean by it's never going to happen? It won't let it happen. Is that what you're saying?
It's just there's nobody around in the political sphere who was going to make it happen. Boris Johnson signed his deal was a deal which was basically we'll have 80% of whatever we had when we were in the EU,
right?
And the other 20%, which is freedom of movement, we'll manage ourselves, and we'll give all the Europeans who are here the right to remain. So basically, it was no change. It's a no change. It was a no change thing. The only thing which was changing was like, well, we'll keep the customs union for another year while we negotiate. We'll keep the single market for another year while we. It was all. There was nothing. There was no change. There would have been no change on the 1st of November. You would not have noticed anything. So it's not going to happen. And also the demographics are that with every year that goes by, the older people who will be voting Brexit are going, and the younger people are mostly remain. And so the last 3 or 4 years, we've got all the 70 to 75-year-olds who would have died in that time, etc. The demographics are just totally against Brexit. Plus, the makeup of the
What's up? Okay, let's imagine this scenario. Let's say that Boris Johnson's gamble pays off and he wins. Could he not have a majority, therefore, to carry through Brexit?
Yeah, but it won't be a Brexit anyway, so that you'll be back to square one. It'll be pretending that there's a Brexit, which nobody in the media said. I mean, it's a different argument. I mean, that was not a deal. That was not a deal, which was a Brexit. There's no Brexit around.
But you're saying it will only be Brexit in name, not in action, not in actual practice.
Yes. It's a Brexit in name only, which was one of the nightmares. Yeah. So it's just basically when you join the EU, they change the locks, and basically it's too complicated to change them back.
Okay, that's interesting.
That's the situation.
Guys,
that's probably the simplest way of saying it, and also economically. The economics it's so complicated to change everything back. It's just not worth it. It's not worth it. EU is an economic empire. It's the world's first purely economic empire. All the other empires were part economic and part military. This is the first economic one. And basically once you've joined, there's no way out. You can't, there's no point. There's no point.
Sounds like something from a Halloween.
It's a basic, yeah, exactly. So basically, it's like having a tenant. You have having a lodger, and then the lodger says, "Actually, I don't want to leave." And say, "Well, actually, no." I'll say, "Well, I'll leave if you give me your TV, and I'll leave you." So actually, you might as well just stay there. And it's that kind of thing.
I'm very excited. I'm kind of interested to see whether your prediction pays off. And actually, I'm to be honest with you, we've been postponing this Brexit thing so many times. I would not be surprised to see it be postponed once again come January.
It's too complicated. It's too complicated to unravel that knot. It's just it's the Gordian knot. Alexander the Great. You know all that stuff, don't you?
Yeah.
It's that. Literally the only way of doing it would be the no deal Brexit. If you just take a sword, you cut through the knot, and you just say I'm off.
Yeah.
But you can't. But nobody's going to do that.
Yeah.
Apart from me.
Well, he's tried to.
It's just.
Looks like it's not.
No, he was never going to. That was a bluff. That was a bluff. That was a bluff. The 50 pence Brexit coins was another bluff. I know these things.
Zach, thank you very much indeed.